welcome. I'm your host, Christina Haskin, and I'm delighted tonight to have a very well-known, famous chef and chocolatier, and has his own line of chocolates.
I needed more space, so back in 2005, I moved to Sono. Really wanted, needed more space for sure, and I always dreamt about having a cute little cafe. Casual, fun, lovely place where you can hang out and have coffee, tea, pastries, and light food dishes, crepes, paninis, quiches, things like that. Not necessarily, the sophisticated 3- or 5-star cuisine I came from. I just wanted something that I missed myself, a place where I could hang out and have a great cup of coffee and a lovely pastry.
You showcase your chocolate, kind of, right?
Yeah, certainly. So that was really the birth of Chocopology. Came up with a name. There's really no logic to it, I would say. I kind of let people decide what it means, which is always fun. A great apology for eating chocolate. I guess I've been there 9 years already.
Right, and then you opened one in New Haven?
Or? Opened in New Haven a couple of years ago. Really embracing sweets, chocolate pastries, no savory food at all.
Just a chocolate shop.
Yeah, chocolate and a lot of desserts and pastries. Plated desserts and the beautiful individual desserts in a glass case. We do offer a little bit of food just because we are in a business district. So we have a merchandiser with pre-packed salads and soup sandwiches. But again, mostly chocolate, sweets, pastries.
And now, as far as we were talking a little bit about the actual making of chocolate and doing the designs and your signature on it, can you tell us a little bit about the process of how you find the raw chocolate, where you get it and where you get because now everybody's a connoisseur, or there's more connoisseurship, I would say, about chocolate, about coffee, like kind of how wine is. Everybody, people want to be knowledgeable about it. So, where do you get your chocolate from, and how is that? Do you travel to find it, or what?
I mean, it is so interesting. Really it is, and all the different types of chocolate, and obviously a lot of this is also personal preferences. I can't tell you what you like. You will taste different chocolates and say, "Ooh, I love this." But we get chocolates from many different places. We get a 71% from Ecuador, 64% from Papua New Guinea, 64% from Costa Rica, from many different places. It completely depends on what we will use them for. And chocolate is just as different as coffee and wine. It really it starts on the plantation, the soil. What is the soil like? And that extends out to the chocolate. It can be that a chocolate have undertones of blackberries, leather, vanilla, for example, and that's all from the plantation. Sometimes it's also, let's say, a plantation is close to the ocean. Then perhaps the wind comes more in from east that season,
so
and the chocolate is more salty.
It's already in the plant and not you added after?
Correct, yeah. So that's the interesting part, just like wine, and really just like
But do you add stuff or not?
Well, so what we do with some chocolates is we blend them together. Now we're just talking raw chocolate. We're not talking bonbons with ganache feelings. We're just talking the raw chocolate. But finding the right raw chocolate with the ganache you're gonna make is essential. That's why we can't just wake up and say, tomorrow I'm gonna be a chocolatier, because it doesn't work like that, right?
Yeah.
Give an example. Let's say I'm making a classic dark chocolate truffle. Then I want that raw chocolate to be a bit fruity, have undertones and layers of flavors just in itself. So a very characteristic, special, unique, awesome chocolate. Let's say that I will make one of our signature chocolates, which is a tangerine red chili ganache in a dark chocolate shell. Then I need that dark chocolate shell, the dark chocolate, to be rather dry, straightforward, probably an African chocolate, perhaps from the Ivory Coast. because the ganache is wild, it's tangerine, red chili, there's a lot happening, right? So you can't have the dark chocolate being crazy and wild too.
So it has
you
to
need it to be
temper it,
rather simple, yeah? So that's such an interesting part of making chocolates, and how we can take two different raw chocolates, mix them together to get a completely different flavor profile, and then what will we use that for? You know, for what ganache will that go well together with? So it's really, really interesting, and also just, you know, from fermentation processes. You know, pretty much you have a cacao fruit, right? And inside the cacao fruit, you have the cacao beans. Then you take the cacao beans out and you start a fermentation like you do with wine and coffee. And the fermentation is so interesting too, how you can ferment right on the plantation, right? You know, think old days. It's rather primitive, right? You will use banana leaves or whatever you have, and just, you know, around the beans to start a fermentation. But you can also use rooms and have fermentation rooms at different temperatures, and that will change the flavor profile tremendously. So it's really, it is so interesting.
And if it goes on it ferments too long, it changes it too.
Certainly,
yeah,
absolutely.
Right.
And then the next step is drying the beans, right? A lot can happen there too. That the length of time that you dry them, the climate, where are you? How is the weather that week? Is the humidity extremely high? Then the next step, the roasting of the beans, again, you know, completely change flavor profiles by the roasting, like you can with coffee. Generally speaking, cheap beans, inexpensive beans, you roast harder to get more flavor, same with coffee.
Right.
So after the roasting, the beans go through a shelling process where you get rid of the outside shell, and then the beans get mashed. So, and in that process, you get cocoa mass, and you get cocoa butter.
Yeah.
And cocoa butter is what you use for white chocolate. So you get cocoa butter, milk powder, soy lecithin or stabilizer, and sugar, and you have white chocolate. Dark chocolate is pretty much the cocoa mass, and you add some of the cocoa butter back in. You have to, so it's liquid enough to melt. Sugar, soy lecithin or stabilizer, and you have dark chocolate. And remember, as higher the cocoa percentage is, as less sugar there is. This is very important because we all know by now that as high, exactly, and as higher the cocoa percentage is, as better it is for us.
Right. Well, now, I mean, I was just going to interject the new thing about the health of chocolate. I mean, everybody's knowing that dark chocolate is good for your health, which is new because usually it's like it was a bad treat. But so, can you talk a little bit about that as well? Why is it healthy? You know, or why are they saying it's healthy anyway?
Well, a lot has also changed because we used to eat much sweeter chocolate, and today we are eating chocolate with a high cocoa percentage, with a lot of cocoa mass, compared to sugar.
Yeah.
And even milk chocolate. Just to round that up, milk chocolate is really just dark chocolate added milk powder, right? But 10 years ago, milk chocolate really had a cocoa percentage of around 20%. Now it has a cocoa percentage of 30, sometimes up to 40. So you're eating a much darker chocolate with more cocoa mass, a lot less sugar.
That's great.
And that's why milk chocolate today, from the right companies, tastes incredible. It actually tastes of chocolate, right? It doesn't taste of sugar and fat.
Right.
Yeah, the benefits, obviously, of eating chocolate with a high cocoa percentage is, you know, it lowers cholesterol and blood pressure, and so it's
getting, well, everybody, it's something that people now don't have to feel guilty about eating unless they go overboard.
And I think that counts for food in general. We must know what we are eating.